Hello, gentlemen. I'm Ben.
I'm Gwen.
And as you can see by our shirts and also Brian here and our iPad, that we are going to be talking about colors, especially in pop culture. So, did you want to take it away?
Sure. So colors and tints and hues are used in all kinds of artworks and media to convey different moods.
Yeah.
So even just like a simple plain color can convey and like make you feel a certain mood.
Even in theater.
Yeah.
Okay.
So for instance, like red is kind of the color of rage, very intense emotion. So like rage, passion, that kind of thing, which is one of the reasons that I don't actually have the statistics up, but I know red cars, especially red smaller cars like sports cars, are at a much higher chance of getting in a car accident.
Or getting pulled over.
Or getting into road rage.
I know from experience. Don't look at me like that. Continue.
But yeah, that was like one of my favorite things learning in art class was how color can affect your mood and how to use that the correct way. Because if you use it the incorrect way, you may be trying to paint a very happy, painting, but
if you use dark colors.
If you use the wrong, not just dark colors, but say you want to use a like purple, yellow, green color scheme in your painting, maybe you're painting a garden. If you choose the wrong kind of purple or the wrong kind of yellow or the wrong kind of green.
The wrong shade.
Yeah, the wrong shade of them or tint of them, then, or tone, whatever you want to call it, then it's going to look very gloomy and not very happy and bright and energetic. Like, for instance, even just like the use of taking a piece of artwork that is very plain and adding things to it of color can change the mood. One of the things we had to do in art class was a 10-minute painting off of YouTube.
Not Bob Ross.
No, sadly no. But it was like a seaside, like you're leaving the woods and looking out onto the ocean, and mine looks like it has the bright color of the trees and the bright blue sky, but there really aren't any like birds in the sky, and there's really nothing really on like the sand, and so it just kind of felt empty.
There could be stuff in the water that we don't know about.
Yeah, but you don't know about it. So it felt very much like a desert island kind of feel. Like you're there.
Oh, the opening to Jaws.
Yeah.
Yeah.
But it felt like you're alone there. Like there's nothing else there. It felt very lonely and cold and bland. And it's a good painting, but it just kind of like, it gives off that kind of mood and emotion.
Yeah.
But one of my classmates took some liberties and added birds in the sky and added some like rocks and seashells on the shore and things like that. And just adding those little tiny bits of color like completely changed the mood, from that like lonely desert island to like a tropical escape. Like if you were to pan the perspective over a bit, it would show people or show more animals. It would, be more lively, and it kind of gave off that more energetic, positive emotion.
And just like what we have here in the studio that you lovelies don't see, like we have a Hamilton poster and we have a Dear Evan Hansen poster on both sides. Besides the Hamilton poster.
Yeah.
We was a bit too late meeting them for that, but especially for Brian, that we have a article pulled up here that they talk about green, and the shade of it symbolizes prosperity and helps to reduce anxiety and most stressful colors for your eyes. And also it can be mind clearing and encouraging composure, which that's what we try to do here on the channel, is try to reduce anxiety and just act like that you're hanging out with some friends.
Yeah.
But also, like with Dear Evan Hansen, it's bright blue, as you can see up there. So it's very calming, but it has those tones of the darkness as well.
Yeah.
So for that, it can be a side of, it can be calming, but there's also somewhat of a dark side to it.
Yeah, because blue can be a very good color for calming, but it can also be a color to induce more negative, like gloomy emotions, depending on how much blue.
And that's what the show is about. It's about gloom.
But yeah, it's always been like very interesting to me just how color plays such a big role in art and in media. And how different, just even like art styles, like using different exaggerated features can completely change the mood of something.
So are you saying my high school, whenever I would used to draw like Tim Burton creepy style, that would change someone's perspective? Yeah,
like if you were to use bright colors.
Yeah. Also depends on the person as well.
Yeah, different people interpret different colors differently. Like maybe generally yellow is a very joyful, positive, creative color, but maybe somebody had a loved one whose favorite color was yellow, or who always wore yellow, and
or
maybe
who was a fan of it, and they liked Georgie, but then he changed.
But maybe that relative's no longer around, or that person's no longer around, and so to them, maybe yellow doesn't really make them feel joyful. It makes them feel more sad because they remember how much like maybe they miss that person. So yeah, it is up to different like interpretation, but generally different colors do mean different things.
Right. Also, yellow can mean electricity, like
yeah.
a Pikachu shape. But did you want to include anything else?
Well, yeah, I mean, like you mentioned Tim Burton, like he does use sometimes very bright, vibrant colors in his works, but
the tone and the story,
they're usually used as accents.
Yeah.
And the main base colors are usually very muted and very like grayscale.
Like for Beetlejuice, you get a lot of black and white and green.
But you get that neon green.
Yeah.
And that brings that pop of color, which kind of
and the
brings
red
that.
And the yellows.
Yeah, like the neon green and the yellows like bring out that, like you said, electric, like energetic feel to it. And it makes it feel a little less scary, just even having those little pops of color in it.
Then also, if you're a fan of Michael Keaton, who played Beetlejuice, then you see him as Batman, it's not really that scary. Same with the woman that played Lydia in Beetlejuice.
Winona Ryder?
Yeah, Winona Ryder.
Yeah.
She's also Joyce from Stranger Things. So I guess you can combine the two and it makes it less scary. Also with different colors as well.
Yeah.
Is if you associate different characters with different colors. Like how Winona Ryder's character in Beetlejuice is completely different than she is in Stranger Things.
Yeah.
But you still flash back to her being as Lydia, wearing the dark tone colors, but then acting as a mom, trying to find her son. I guess it's that tone differently.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, because in Beetlejuice, she's very gothic in her fashion. It's very dark. Like, she's wearing, like, all black, that kind of thing. But then in Stranger Things, even though the colors she generally wears are more muted, they're still a lot brighter and more natural. And
that also takes place in the 80s.
Yeah.
Both of them take place in the 80s, what I'm talking about.
Yeah. But yeah, like, just that difference of even, like, you could have the exact same actor or actress, but depending on how you do the makeup and the, like, clothing for them, they're gonna portray a completely different mood.
Right.
With their acting and with who they're portraying and all that.
Right. And also through some of the stuff that we've seen, even in theater, how when we went to go see Chicago as well, it's a very dark musical.
Yeah.
That has to do with mating and adultery and everything else like that. But the colors that they use made it pop and made it stand out because it takes place in the 20s. So you still have that aspect of the richness of the 1920s and the glamour and how people felt like back then.
Yeah. And also they use that clever thing of the black and white, not just to convey the dark mood and tone of it, but also it helps kind of convey that, yeah, a lot of these dark things happen at night.
Yeah.
And also,
like Cell Block Tango.
When you think 1920s...
Can I bring up Cell Block Tango for a second?
Yeah.
The musical nerd I am. I love, not to be cliche, but I do love that musical number because of, not just the dancing, not because of the story, but because the use of color is whenever they describe killing their husband or their boyfriend, they pull a red cloth from them, which signifies them being dead. So they can actually, color can be used to tell a big part of the story.
Yeah, and if I remember right, I could be completely wrong about this, but if I remember right, with the woman who didn't kill her husband, when she pulled the rag, it was white.
Yeah.
If I remember right. I may be remembering wrong, but with all the other ones, they pulled it and it was like this bright crimson red. But when she pulled it, it was white. And that kind of signified that, yeah, she's innocent, because white is used to kind of signify innocence. A lot of times children are dressed in white.
Not for children of the corn, no.
Yeah.
We're going to be talking a lot about horror movies in this episode, if you can't tell.
Yeah. But, yeah, like, white is used to kind of signify purity.
Yeah.
And so it's usually used on children and specifically, like, young girls. Maybe even, like, teenage girls, that kind of thing, because, like, it's that symbol of purity. And that's kind of why people usually wear white on their wedding day.
And that's why also on the Netflix show, another Netflix show, The Chilling Adventures of Sabrina, whenever we see her early in the season, like before she turns evil, she's always wearing light colors and the white and the purity. But whenever she, on her birthday, not later after her birthday, whenever she transforms into her dark self, she's wearing more dark red and crimson and black, just to signify that yes, she is evil now, even though she has silver hair.
Yeah.
Magical silver hair. So, but did you want to go on break and we can talk about more about the examples that we chose?
Yeah.
Yeah. So we're gonna be right back after these messages. Bye.
Bye.
Hi, my name is Ben Morgan. Some of you may know me as Arthur Morgan, Saxon Jackson, Big Mike. I am an on-air talent at WHIO in Dayton. I am a producer and board operator at WHIO in Dayton. I am the assistant news director at Troy Community Radio and on-air talent at Troy Community Radio. I'm also a part-time fun haver, full-time fun haver. Oh yeah. Well, I was at a pretty interesting place in my life. You know, I was job to job. I was working at a burger place and I was working at a pizza shop, and I was sort of looking for something to do with my life and my time. And I was in a radio program in high school, and I remember it really clicking with me being something that I could see myself doing. And I was, you know, scrolling through the internet and I saw an ad for an ICB workshop, and I decided to check it out. And I went to the workshop, and it was a perfect fit. It was something that I knew that would be good for me and something that I needed to do. And 2 years later, I'm more successful than I thought I'd ever be. So I was always hoping that I could make my radio job a full-time thing that I could live on with ease and not have to worry about. And so I was working 2 jobs. I was working at Troy Community Radio full-time as their news assistant and an on-air talent there, getting up at 5 a.m. sometimes, working 12-hour days, as much as I could to live happily. And then I was also working at HIO doing part-time. So I was an on-air talent there. I was producer board op there. I run their UD games and all that. And I was doing as much work as I could to get noticed, and so people could give me more opportunities. And finally, that happened. I was approached with a Cox Media office in Tulsa. They had a position there for their producer of their morning show. And through hard work and constantly bugging the boss for another chance to do something even better, he threw my name out, and they came to me, offered me the position. They flew me out to Tulsa for an in-person interview. We had a couple interviews on the phone, and even now talking about it, it kind of seems a bit unreal that they're pushing so hard to get me, but it feels great to know that I've used everything that I've learned here at ICB, and I can continue to use it and thrive and succeed in a big market like Tulsa, Oklahoma. And I'm excited for the future, and I couldn't have done it without ICB. If you're serious and you're passionate about wanting to get into the radio business, then the International College of Broadcasting is the place you want to check out. It is got all the tools you need to be successful. All the teachers that are your professors, they work in the industry. They are still working in the industry. They've worked in the industry for years, and the things that they're telling you are things that they know are true. They're sharing life experiences, they're sharing skills, and they're allowing you to build and a place to hone your craft. They're willing to teach you, and they want to see you succeed, and that's what makes ICB so special. I wouldn't have succeeded without ICB, and I know you'll succeed with ICB.
Wow, that was a fun little chip of the ads. Anyways, also welcome back. So we got 3 examples, each in their different categories of dark shadow, light, white, bright. Don't say that fast. I tried to. Bright, colorful, and vibrant, and mixed. Do you want to start off?
Sure.
That was a really confident sure.
Yeah, well, it's because I don't know what to do.
Do you want me to? Because...
Well, no, I'm just thinking.
Because the second choice is more, you know more about it than I do.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. I'll start off. The first one that we have is Shadow Colossus with dark/shadow. Shadow Colossus is a very dark game. Not talking about the story or anything, but besides the story, it's a very dark and quote unquote, no pun intended, shadowy game where you are faced. The game is about you facing these giant Colossus figures as you're trying to resurrect either your sister, your lover, your mom, whoever she is to you. We are not sure because nobody talks in the game besides the almighty god of that game.
Yeah, we really don't hear people talk about much. There's like 1 or 2 instances where something other than the god talks.
Yeah. And so that's the basis of the game. But as you're exploring, as you are making your way through the journey of fighting all this Colossus, you are having that feeling of isolation with these dark areas and getting in the shadowy parts while trying to fight all these Colossus and dealing with mental struggle of, am I really doing this to save the one that I love, possibly?
Yeah. Yeah.
So it's a very isolating type game.
Yeah, like when
especially by the colors.
Yeah, like they're very muted. They are very grayscale.
Yeah.
Because it takes place all out in nature, so you'd think it'd be a very bright, colorful
but
game.
There's instances of it being bright and colorful.
It's more light than bright and colorful, but like we put Shadow Colossus under the two categories under both dark and shadow and like light and bright, because it's kind of a mixture. Like when you're exploring, it is like just out in the fields and all that. The sky is always like bright,
Yeah.
and like giving off a very like bright light. But even though that's there, that kind of makes the fields, because you're by yourself and there really aren't that many animals around, like it makes you feel very like,
Well, there is animals, but they're just lizards.
well,
They're
yeah,
just
but
silver-tailed
and there are
lizards.
some birds and things like that, but for the most part, it makes it feel like the fields are bigger than they are, and like the whole terrain is bigger than it is, and it makes it feel very like you're just going, like you're running forever, like you're never gonna make it across this field. But yeah, like when you're not just exploring, when you do get to where the Colossus are, it's always something I picked up on through playing the game. It's the sky always gets darker when you get closer to this Colossus.
Yes.
And they're always kind of back in these little corners. Like there are a few that are out in the fields and things like that, but for the most part, they're kind of shoved back in corners and like in little tiny, like almost caves kind of areas, like in little pockets of in between cliffs. And it feels very dark and isolating. And
Even for the second one, you have to go down in this ravine, and there's dust kicking up all around you. But that's very isolating as well, because you got this tan scale covering you all the way around. So all you have to do is focus on the Colossus, and you cannot look anywhere else. So it's that isolation of it, it's just you and this beast.
yeah. But yeah, like that's one kind of example in a game where darkness is used to convey that mood of isolation and dread and negative emotions. I mean, it's a very pretty game. The colors are
very beautiful. It's a very good storytelling game.
The colors just kind of both that extreme dark and that extreme light kind of make it feel like sad.
Yeah.
It's kind of hard to explain.
Speaking about sad, do you want to go jump to the next example that we have?
Sure. The
It
next
gets
one
better
for
and better
dark
from here.
is another video game. Well, a whole series. I just
And also
picked.
slash movie series.
I'm
Can't
not
leave
gonna
those
talk
out.
about the movie series 'cause I haven't seen any of them.
Don't.
Yeah, I've heard they're not good. But it's Resident Evil.
Oh, hold on. Side note. I found Resident Evil a combo pack at the thrift store. They had both the first movie, then they had the fourth movie with it.
Wow, what a
That
deal.
was it. That was
Maybe
Yeah,
two and three probably just weren't important to the story.
no. Leave out me on. It's okay.
But yeah, Resident Evil they use dark in a different way than Shadow Colossus does.
Yes.
In
Because
my experience, especially in the first, let me think. If you count Zero as the first game, I'm just gonna count it as the first game.
it's not the first game.
I know when did it come out? Like
It's
like
a prequel.
It's a prequel, but it came out like in between I think 3 and 4.
Yeah.
So that's interesting. But like in my experience, every game before 4 when you're playing it takes place almost entirely at night.
Yeah.
And if it's not taking place at night, it's so overcast outside or rainy outside that like it feels like it's night. And they use that to their advantage in the game because it makes you have that feeling of that isolation, like, and just the way the earlier games like 0, 1, and 2 are set up is you're always, and this was also just how video games were the easiest to make back then, but you're in a very small area.
Yeah.
And you go from small area to small area. Like, oh, you start out in a house, then you go to a laboratory. But it's not big and open. It's always very cramped and small and
Cluttered.
yeah, and dark. Especially they can do that, especially with like the setting of an old house.
Right.
And they kind of brought that feeling back with 7, kind of. But
Also the light.
Yeah, the beginning
Adjusting.
of every single Resident Evil game, you have to adjust your screen brightness, and I would always cheat and make it as bright as I could.
How dare you?
Because, well, I already have bad eyesight as it is. I can't deal with
You
having...
would do such a thing like that.
I can't deal with not being able to see where I'm going. It doesn't help that I have 2 giant windows right behind me on the couch, just causing a huge glare on my TV screen.
Yeah.
So I already can't see anything unless it's on the brightest. But yeah, like they also, I know in a lot of the Resident Evil games use power outage as a fear tactic of kind of like, oh, the power's out. Now it's even darker than it was before.
And now you're gonna have to look for this component to bring the power back on. But oh wait, there's 50 zombies.
Especially in Zero, when you're in the train, there are dead zombies just waiting to wake up, like in the seats. But there's also just corpses. So you never know when you're walking down that very like, not even as wide as this table, like hallway or like like pathway in between the train seats. Like you never know when one of those zombies is gonna just jump up and grab you. And sometimes because of the camera angles and just the shadows, you can't see the zombies in any of those earlier games. Like,
am I speaking to present Gwen or young child Gwen?
Both. But yeah, like I really liked how they used shadows to kind of hide. It kind of caused that mystery and that fear of like what could be around that corner, or what could be hiding down that dark hallway, or is something gonna jump out at me?
I take it they're gonna have Resident Evil be its own episode because you got a lot.
I got a lot.
You got a lot of therapy
My
to
goal
go
is,
through.
yeah, my goal is to play all the games, and I'm like halfway there.
Yeah. Well, you're living on a prayer too?
Yeah.
Okay. So, up next we have the movie series, The Conjuring, leaving out Annabelle and The Nun because...
Yeah, we'll just focus on just The Conjuring.
Let's just focus
for now.
on just The Conjuring, the good Conjuring movies that cannot be tainted.
Wait, there's more than one Conjuring?
Yeah, there's 2.
There is?
Yes.
Oh, I didn't know that.
Unless you just want to...
I've only seen one.
Yeah. Unless you just want to go on... Yeah, you can just go on any website. Why am I doing that? Any computer or iPad or whatever, and just read the casebooks of Ed and Lorraine. You get a whole Conjuring series right there, and you don't even watch movies. That's what I used to do as a kid.
I just used to look up like urban legends in my own neighborhood.
Same. I used to do both because Ed and Lorraine are still my heroes, even though they're long past. But both with the Conjuring and the Insidious series, both of my favorite horror series of all time, they use dark shades. Even though whenever it would be light outside or daytime outside, it still felt overcasted and dark and gloomy because you got that dark presence that's inside the house or inside the building that it's in. Even on the outside, what I liked also about the first Conjuring movie, because that's the one that I'm not giving any spoilers for the second one, because you just need to see the second one.
I did need to see the second one. I don't know how I haven't.
The one scene where Lorraine walks out and she goes to the tree, even though it's very bright and colorful out, it still has that overshade of something looming over.
If I remember the scene right, it wasn't as much colorful as it was bright. It was just bright. Like, there was a little bit of color, but it was all muted. But it was like, it was just bright out. Like, you could see it was overcast, but
and you could still see
just this like immense light out, and
you can still see the green that's in the grass and the green that's in the trees.
It's not like muted to the point where it almost looks black and white like in Shadow Colossus, but it is muted enough so that it's like an off green, and like, you know, like the trees aren't like that bright, vibrant, realistic green. They're kind of almost like tinted
mixed.
A little bit. Yeah, they're like shadowed down a little bit.
Yeah. But moving on from The Conjuring, because I can talk about The Conjuring all day long, because I love that series. For Insidious, they use a lot of, because of the name, they use a lot of dark colors and also really crimson red in the movies, just to convey of the isolation and the darkness of what the demons that are either possessing the person or just in the house by itself, that they're not friendly enough and that they have evil intent on trying to tear this place apart and trying to get to everybody. And as well as all of the Insidious movies have an amazing story. We'll give them props for that. But also, they do their job by telling, through color and through the story, what if this happened to you? And you can feel the feelings of the characters in each of the scenes.
Yeah. Like, well, and later on we're going to talk about it, and there's a scene in it that I related to on a spiritual level. But yeah, like, we're going to talk a bit more about how they use color to kind of convey characters' emotion later on. But yeah, we already kind of talked about the light and bright part about Shadow Colossus, but do you want to talk about another game that you really like?
I don't really like Junie.
Oh, you don't?
No, I do not. We're going to be talking
I thought you picked it because you liked it.
No, I just picked it because I love the colors in it.
Oh, okay.
We're going to talk about a game called Junie, which is a very aesthetically pleasing game, even though they do have, it takes place out in the desert, and the whole point of the game is you trying to find yourself, basically. And it's very isolating, but through the use of colors, through the brightness of, they don't speak in the game. They use the use of colors and the use of symmetry and
yeah, and I'd like to make just like a comment, like not really talking about color, but also like from the screenshots I looked up before we started filming of the game, the camera angle is like almost below the character on the ground, like kind of looking up, and so it kind of looks like it takes place almost in a desert kind of area. It makes it look, with going along with those like plain,
makes it feel vast.
Yeah, it makes it feel like big and open, and even though it's not like a pure white, which really helps with that effect of big openness, but even though it's not a pure white, they chose just like a single color that was very bright, and they just kind of made the whole game that color.
Also the use of the camera angle and also the use of the colors. Even though the color is what it is, it makes you feel empowering that you can play through it and feel confident about yourself. Yeah. Because that's the whole message of the game.
Yeah, and so like it has that lonely feel because of how bright and light the colors are.
And you are basically by yourself unless someone joins you.
Yeah, but at the same time, the colors they chose were very warm colors that makes you feel empowered and joyful and happy. And yeah, it kind of helped balance out that loneliness feeling. Like, it still feels lonely, but it also feels very like calming and adventurous.
Yeah, and you haven't heard the music from it, because music, we need to talk about the music and how it affects people in a different episode, but yeah, we can bring that back possibly. But speaking of isolation and loneliness, do you want to talk about The Walking Dead?
Yeah, that and The Stand, because
I haven't seen The Stand.
You need to see The Stand. It's one of my favorite horror movies. It was one of the first horror movies I ever saw.
But my name's not Stan.
We have The Stand on DVD now, but the only way I used to be able to watch it is because they were like showing it on like CBS one night. And my dad got our VHS player and popped some tapes in it and hit record, and so I had to find a bunch of VHS tapes to be able to watch The Stand, and I would do that. And then I'd get very annoyed at having to skip through all the commercials. But yeah.
What did they do with the covers?
So I don't remember it's been a while since I've seen it, so I'm not fully, I don't really remember the whole story and plot and all of that, but I know that like something happens and basically almost all people are just gone. I think like a disease happens, and some kind of disease happens, and it just like, it kills everybody. Yeah. And you're left with just these few characters that are immune. But some of the people who are immune and like still alive aren't really the greatest people.
Kind of like The Last of Us.
Yeah. So basically they're all trying to survive, and they're all trying to get to this lady that they're all having these like dreams and visions about, if I remember right. But as they're walking, if I remember correct, I just remember it being very bright out, like during the day parts of the movie. It was very bright white coloring out, which helped with that loneliness feeling. And I'm actually going to talk about two zombie things, other thing than The Walking Dead, because
Talk about walkers.
The thing I was gonna... The one of the examples I was gonna give from The Walking Dead, that helped with that like vast lonely feeling of like you're in this giant world and there's nobody else around. The Walking Dead actually kind of took that from a different zombie movie.
Which one did they take it from?
I might get the name wrong, but I'm pretty sure it's called 28 Days Later. Basically the whole part where, spoiler alert if you haven't watched The Walking Dead or 28 Days Later, wakes up in both Rick and the main character from 28 Days Later wake up in the hospital, and already like the colors are like nobody's around, and they unplug themselves, they get out of the hospital, and everything, it's not overcast quite, but like it just feels like all the colors have been muted, but not in a dark way. It feels almost like all the colors have been washed out a little bit, and it just feels very like cold and lonely. Like neither of these characters can find any like sign of civilization. And I noticed not just in that first episode of The Walking Dead, but throughout that whole first and kind of the second season, like the first 2 seasons, they used that bright white kind of coloring to convey that like vast, empty, lonely feeling of we're the only people around. And then in the later seasons, I noticed they used more events taking place at night and more colorful, bright tones and more shadows, and they brought more variety into it to kind of, because they did start interacting with more people, and they did start...
Then also where they're at in the series.
Yeah.
With The Walking Dead now, the storyline, it's very dark because now you got the Whispers.
Yeah.
I haven't watched the show since season 5 or season 7, so I have no idea what's going on. But I know from the comic book line, the Whispers, they disguise themselves as the Walkers so they can get supplies and get back to their home base and basically just live their day-to-day life. Just normal life. Even though they're skinwalkers, basically.
Yeah.
Well, no pun intended there.
Yeah.
Second time's a charm. But
yeah, like that feeling of kind of the wrap it all up, that very just like using just light itself, like white coloring, makes stuff feel more, makes it feel bigger and more empty. Like how we read in that article that if you paint a room white, it makes the room look bigger and feel bigger and makes the ceilings feel taller.
But the room in here don't look any bigger.
Yeah. But yeah, like it also just kind of it can make, if used correctly, making something almost entirely white or white scaled.
Yes.
It can make your piece of media feel so empty and like isolated, but in that all of a sudden everyone's just gone kind of way.
The isolation feel.
Yeah, like not isolation in the like you've been like secluded into a small cramped space, like how darkness makes you feel isolated. It makes you feel isolated in, you're trapped in this vast area and you can't get out because it's so big.
Yeah. Kind
of feel.
Do you want to... Let's move on to what's probably the best group of examples that we can give for the color mood palette episode that we're talking about. Is bright, colorful, and vibrant. And the first one that we chose is Breath of the Wild. Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. And we were talking before the episode, is even in Ganon's castle, even whenever you go into the caves and the supposedly dark areas, they still have light. And they still have the colors. They still have all of the colors of the rainbow, basically. And oh my goodness, talk about light. So whenever you go in Ganon's castle, you still got that dark overlay, but you still get that sense of heroism. You still feel heroic, you still feel empowered, and you still feel that oomph, putting it that way, to actually beat the game and to feel like the true hero that you set to be in Breath of the Wild.
Yeah, and it comparing like kind of Breath of the Wild to another Zelda game that had a very big overworld like it, not as big as it, but the biggest before it. You have Twilight Princess, which had more natural coloring, and it made the game feel, when it got dark, more scary and dark and negative.
I never played Twilight Princess.
You're going to have to at some point here.
Yeah.
Wind Waker.
Yeah, I'd rather play Wind Waker.
Yeah. Wind Waker did take. That's one nice thing about Wind Waker, is that even in the dark areas, there's still that burst of color, and so it makes you not feel super scared or super
Is that vague?
It doesn't induce anxiety. It induces calmness.
Right.
Oh no, I just got killed by this thing. Well, I can just go back and fight it again.
20 flights of stairs and do it again.
Yeah, but if you're playing a darker game like Resident Evil, you die and you freak out because it
I
was,
did multiple times. You can watch it now on the channel.
It was just so negative that it makes you want to just quit the game.
Yeah.
Unlike something like Breath of the Wild or Wind Waker, where the colors are so bright and vibrant. And it was more cartoony in Wind Waker, but in Breath of the Wild they did make it feel more natural.
Also for Breath of the Wild is you can play it in any mood that you are feeling. And it can definitely change your mood by if you go to a dark area and you stay there for a long time. I know this with me, but personally, is I start to feel more negative. I feel more isolated, trying to fight through these monsters, trying to get what I need from there. But in the great open fields, I feel heroic. I feel like I can do whatever I want as well.
Going back to the isolation feeling with bright white is when you're having to be in the mainly snow area in Breath of the Wild, it can feel almost maddening at times, because it's oh my gosh, am I getting close to where I need to get to?
Am I going the right way?
Yeah, it can be very confusing, and it can just feel so negative and kind of sad.
Yeah.
But yeah, Breath of the Wild did a good job of getting a good balance in there of color. They didn't make it too bright, but they didn't make it too natural and dark.
Yeah. They made it just right.
To the point where when you are in a more scary situation, it doesn't feel as scary. You don't give yourself an anxiety attack playing the game.
Yeah.
Like you may a darker game like Resident Evil or The Last of Us.
Like Resident Evil 2.
Yeah.
Still not over it. Still taking my little break from the game. But speaking about isolation and loneliness, let's talk about some Pokemon, please. Dad, where are you?
Your shirt.
Yeah, Detective Pikachu. Out now on digital and also Blu-ray and DVD. Whatever you're watching, and it's not VHS anymore.
Oh man.
I know.
You could probably put it in a DVR and then start playing it on your TV and get your old VHS thing out and record over it.
Pokemon does it very beautifully, not just in the movie, but also in the video games as well. Is when the Pokemon first came out, it was black and white. But whenever they shifted it over to color, you saw, and especially in the anime and the movies, you've seen that specifically for each of the Pokemon they have, for Pikachu, he's electric. So of course he's going to be yellow, or Squirtle's going to be obviously blue because he's a water type, and Charmander orange, reddish shades. And then for Bulbasaur is green because he's grass.
Yeah.
So they do it as color tone to whatever section that they belong in. That's what I also liked about the movie as well.
Yeah.
Even though it takes place mostly at night, you still feel bright. You still feel that sense of adventure that they're actually going to conclude with the case that they're trying to go
Yeah,
on.
and they took advantage of being in the city by using neon lighting,
Yeah.
like neon signs and things like that to help bring that pop of color. Like, oh, we're in a really dark alleyway, but there's neon signs everywhere, and so like you get that like kind of tint of purple or blue in your whole shot because of that neon sign in the background.
Also, with this, we're mostly going to be talking about the Detective Pikachu movie, but especially with the scene with Mr. Mime, even though you get the different vibrant colors from Mr. Mime, you're still in the dark space, but yet you still feel
Yeah, they still used
it's still
bright
funny,
colors,
it's still
so
entertaining, it's still happy.
the use of the dark room kind of made it kind of like, oh, this is out of place, but in a good positive way of like, oh, we're in a funny movie, like a happy positive movie, and they're in this dark place and trying to do dark, negative, scary things to this Pokemon, but it's coming across as funny because it's too bright and colorful to get away with that.
Also, speaking about my favorite Pokemon, which is Bulbasaur, the scene where Detective Pikachu gets hit and Tim tries to find Pokemon to help heal Pikachu. You get all these different Bulbasaurs. They act like cats, as best I can describe it.
Yeah.
They act like happy, curious cats. And that's what I love the most, is that even though they're the darker shades, they still act happy, they still act curious, and they still want to help out the characters. And it still makes you feel like that there's hope in this movie, as well as in the games as well.
Yeah.
Yeah. Because plot twist, the video game is exactly like the movie.
It is kind of a waste of money buying it.
It wasn't a waste of money. And do you want to, speaking about Pokemon and parks and fighting gyms, do you want to talk about Parks and Rec?
Yeah, so like moving away from like video games that use bright color, because it's easy to talk about video
Even
games.
though the next one is a video game, for
Yeah.
example.
Even though video games use color a lot more, and it's easier to look at a video game and go, oh yeah, they use this kind of coloring to make this kind of mood.
And that's why for Pokemon, that's why I focus more on the movie instead of the video game.
Yeah. But it's a lot harder to look at a piece of media because media kind of changes more.
Yeah.
Or like by media, I mean like, you know, movies, TV, that kind of thing. So with Parks and Rec, if you were to like compare it to a lot of shows a lot like it, like The Office, and very specifically the first season of The Office was very hard for me to get through because of the lighting. There was no color in the office space, and the walls were all white, and it just had that kind of negative,
Feel to it.
isolated, cold feel to it. It didn't feel funny or happy or energetic. But then Parks and Rec, just in their little office space they take advantage of using wood as an accent, so that bright colored wood, and
like we was talking about earlier, they even have birds flying in the background. They have the different shades of green, and the park literally right outside the window.
yeah, like they have all the windows open, where that was kind of it made sense for the office to not have a lot of windows in it because that's what an office space would look like, but it also was kind of a disadvantage because even when they had shots with the windows in it, the windows were always closed. They always had curtains over them and stuff, and it made it very hard to just get through that season. But I can binge watch Parks and Rec because it's so positive and happy and energetic because they use those very bright colors, like almost unnaturally bright coloring. Even just with what the characters wear. They all wear different types of clothing and different colors, and it just brings very bright, colorful pop to the show.
Mix is a blend of all of it. And starting off with Uncharted, the whole Uncharted series, it can go from the first game that we played on the channel. We're gonna play through all of them, but beginning of the first game, because I don't want to drag any spoilers or nothing like that. The first game starts off as the stereotypical Indiana Jones / Tomb Raider, where you're going on an adventure with your companion, going through the forest, and finding hidden ruins from long ago, and you got this bright green forest area with birds and animals just running across the fields, and it feels very nice and very open and very lively. But the more that you progress through the game, the darker it gets, the more you have to go in these catacombs and the dark science labs, and it turns more into Resident Evil type game where you have to shoot zombies, you have to like find the cursed item.
Yeah, it definitely went from like that kind of Zelda feel of like that bright colorfulness at the very beginning to like now you're trapped down in these catacombs. Well, it's not gonna have plants in it. It's gonna be dark and kind of shadowed, and
also it has that the color feel to it is. I want to use St. Augustine for example because St. Augustine is a perfect close by place. Even Mansfield for Ohioans is that if you go into a prison like that, you don't really experience a lot of color. You experience the dark gray and the dead leaves and dead plants and the shades of brown.
But then outside of those places, you may experience the more colorful, lively, vibrant feel.
Yes. And that's also continued with the rest of the game series as a way. In the second game, it feels more isolated. It feels more white and light and bright. Has a feel to it. And the feeling of isolation and thinking that, am I really going to go through with this? Am I actually going to survive it? Besides the third game where it's out in the desert, it's very tan, very open. It's still very isolating, and then back to the fourth game where it feels exactly like the first game.
Yeah.
So, but the second to last example that we have is It and also Stranger Things.
Yeah, and I also kind of want to talk a little bit with kind of the thing they pulled off with It. One of the things I wanted to point out, they also pulled off with, it's usually pulled off with horror media. With how it itself is dressed in white, like almost completely white except for the little bursts of red.
Yes.
And
the orange hair.
Yeah, reddish orange hair. And white is supposed to be like kind of when put on like a person, it's supposed to resemble like purity. So when you see this what's supposed to be a good creature, which is a clown. Clowns are supposed to bring happiness. So when you have this thing that's supposed to bring happiness,
clowns are evil.
Yeah, I don't like clowns. But when you have the things that's supposed to be bringing happiness, and it's dressed in all white, when it's white has become kind of worn and off-white, and
that's why also
it's acting to bring fear. Your brain gets tricked into thinking, oh, this is a good thing, but then, like, subconsciously, but then you're seeing this bad thing happen, so your brain's getting these mixed messages, and it makes it seem scarier than maybe it is.
And that's why I also liked about It, not Pennywise just in general, but speaking of Pennywise, whenever he speaks with Georgie for the first time, you see the vibrant blue in his eyes, and you see the bright white on his outfit. But the more that he talks to Georgie, the darker it gets, the darker shades come out.
And then his eyes go from blue to like red, like an orangey red.
Right. And same with Georgie is, because we don't want to talk about any spoilers that happen in It.
Yeah.
Since the second movie is going to be coming out, and we got we actually went to go see it because it came back on theaters for 2 days, which they had a little sneak peek for the second one, which was just fantastic. But for Georgie in particular, he's such an interesting character because you got that yellow shade, which is, again, for purity and childlike.
Joy and energy.
But again, Georgie dies, so whenever after he dies and gets possessed by Pennywise, he has that darker shade.
Yeah, they kind of make the raincoat, instead of being that bright lemon yellow, it's more grayed and browned down. Like, it's not that bright, vibrant yellow anymore.
Especially where Pennywise bit his arm off.
It's all black.
And you see that decay.
Yeah. And how... I like just how they did the kind of psychology coloring of Georgie, how they have him have a bright yellow boat and a bright yellow raincoat.
Yeah.
So it kind of helps resemble and bring that subconscious thought in the mind of, okay, this is a pure child.
Yeah. And
which makes it hurt even worse when he does die.
Yeah.
Because you don't see him for very long, but you get instantly attached because you see this adorable little kid.
That I swear he's been in a new movie here recently, and I can't think about what movie he's been in, the actor. But we're gonna skip 2 of the examples just for time.
Yeah.
But do you want to talk about Over the Garden Wall? Because that would be a good last little point to bring up.
Sure. You actually know more about that than me, so could I just touch on the Doctor Who one a little bit? But yeah, with Doctor Who, with the different doctors, they will use different color tones in each season to kind of show what the season's mood is. Like for instance, with Eccleston and somewhat with David Tennant, it kind of had more of a darker feel, because with Eccleston, he came right after the War Doctor, so he was going through a lot.
Yeah, we don't get to meet the War Doctor until the 50th anniversary.
Yeah. So he was going through a lot, and so a lot of negative emotion and feelings. So the season,
darker shade of colors.
Yeah, so the season showed a lot more darker shades, and especially with the Empty Child episodes, it almost completely takes place at night.
Yeah.
And some of that was for storytelling, but it also just kind of had that feeling of, it made it
dread.
Scarier. If it had taken place mostly during the day, it wouldn't have been as scary. But then you have like Matt Smith's seasons where the colors are even more, they're just bright and colorful. They're a lot more bright and colorful. And even when they did scarier episodes, they weren't as dark as with Eccleston and David Tennant.
Like the Apollo episodes, even though they were very dark in tone, even with the monsters in those episodes, it still seemed very bright.
Yeah.
It still feel very labyrinth type.
Yeah. So yeah, Doctor Who, even just with the
Because Doctor Who is a very dark show.
Yeah.
Especially with the colors and everything, but they still got that glance of hope, and they still got the bright colors with them.
Yeah, it's just, they did a really good job at balancing all just like dark and shadow and the bright light and the color, the vibrant colors. They did a good job at mixing all of those and putting a good mix into the entire show as a whole, even with the original series.
And the closest off, we want to try something new.
Oh, did you want to talk about that?
No.
Oh, okay.
With the closest off, we want to try something new, where we're going to take a question from Yahoo Answers and try to answer them, depending on what episode topic that we talk about. So the one that I pulled from before this episode is, when you're watching a horror movie, do you feel the urge to shout at the screen? And the answer to that is no.
Yes.
What?
Yeah.
You didn't want
I don't shout at the screen. Like, I don't get scared and shout like a lot of my friends do. I more shout like, oh, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
Because they're usually doing something dumb. And it gets me so frustrated that I end up yelling at the screen.
See, but I don't do that because I'm like, this is actors, this is a story that they try and tell. even though I'm still feeling like I should yell at this character about how stupid they are being, I still get that sense of realism of like, yeah, this is just a movie.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't yell at the screen as much as like my parents do, especially my mom. She gets so frustrated with dumb people in horror movies. She will constantly just yell at them. I'll more say little comments under my breath and things like that.
Yeah. Because we both do like the Mystery Science Theater thing of riffing on a bad movie.
Yeah.
Or even just horror movies in general, like where if a character is doing something dumb, of course we're gonna riff on them and be like, why? What in your right mind thinks to go upstairs, not outdoor and call the police?
Yeah. It's
So.
like, oh, don't go into the haunted house and investigate. Call the police.
But it's fun.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, no, that's all the time that we have for this episode. If you enjoyed this episode, high five everyone with your thumb.
Leave a comment down below.
Don't forget that subscribe button. Also, don't forget to ring the bell.
Ding.
Stay notified when we upload. And yeah, I hope you have a legendary day whatever day you're watching this. And next time, Broken Hunter Gaming. Bye.
Bye.